Welcome to Effective People, your HR transformation partner.
So the agenda for today, we will start by covering the current landscape of payroll management and what it looked like. Hereafter, we will go through some strategic considerations for C-level and some core features within SAP Employee Central Payroll. In the end, we will have a live demo of the solution. I'll begin by just quickly introducing the two presenters today. We have Dan Wilson. He is our head of payroll consulting services at Effective People. With more than 25 years of experience, HR has been the core of Dan's career. Jasmina Larsen is the payroll subject matter expert at Effective People. She has been involved in many different payroll projects, including both globally and locally in Nordic countries. And with that, I will hand it over to Jasmina Larsen.
Thank you very much, Ine. And hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. So I will start by talking about the landscape of payroll management that very often looks like a busy city on the next slide. Yes, this one. So if we can just symbolize various aspects of payroll management here, such as salary calculations, tax compliance, employee benefits, record keeping, and so on. The busy streets, if we imagine them here on this image, covered with organizations, managers and employees on one side, and then on the other side we have HR departments and payroll professionals, right? We are all relied on tools and software we are giving, and then in return it is expected that we should provide a sense of organization and efficiency in the corporation. So that's why we have all these tools right available. The landscape of payroll management is undergoing significant transformation that is driven by technological advancements, evolving workforce dynamics, and the growing complexity of regulatory requirements. What are the trends of landscape of payroll management? Well, the first one I would say is automated payroll processes. So the integration of advanced technologies like cloud computing, artificial intelligence, machine learning, right? All these trends that we are seeing the past month or year has revolutionized payroll management. We have to admit that. In which way is automation transforming payroll management? Well, mostly by eliminating manual tasks, which are then in return reducing errors. And as a result, we have increased efficiency. And that's the most important. We will all agree when it comes to running the payroll right properly. What have payroll software done through this automation? Well, it's data entry that is automated, calculations of payroll, compliance checks. All this is in the end freeing up staff to focus on higher value activities, and organizations, businesses are also more free now to have a reduction of costs for their business and significant time savings. Another trend in the landscape of payroll management is cloud-based payroll solutions. These solutions are gaining power definitely due to their flexibility, scalability, reduced IT costs. As we know, businesses are accessing payroll today just by a simple click or an internet connection. And all this is eliminating the need for on-premise servers and software installations, all this expensive stuff, right? Which is, of course, naturally leading to decreased costs of operational costs of running the payroll. The flexibility is particularly beneficial, I would say, for those companies and businesses with distributed workforce or those who are expanding into new markets. Another trend of landscape of payroll management that, in my opinion, is actually the most important is globalization and multinational payroll. Well, as businesses are expanding globally, managing payroll across multiple countries and multiple jurisdictions, it becomes increasingly complex to run the payroll. Suddenly, we have much more tasks to do and many more things to see over, and that's why it is so important to have a global payroll solution like SAP Employee Central Payroll, which is designed and prepared to handle complexities of different tax laws, regulations, as well as reporting requirements. We have seen recently, for example, in November last year, 2023, we have seen some changes in legislation and changes in ratification of competent authority agreement between Belgium and the Netherlands, for example, for employees, cross-country employees who are working in one country, living in another country, and less than 50% minimum or less than 50%. That's the rule. So the companies who are operating this region will definitely have a need for a robust global payroll system in order to handle this salaries for this type of employees with correct taxation and accurate payroll. All that is necessary in this type of requirement. We have also, for example, in Czech Republic, recent revision in taxes of employee stock options and shares for RSUs, particularly in situations that include changes of tax residency. For example, when employee is sent on a global assignment, long-term global assignment, and has RSUs earned in a home country. We will see later on a little bit in a live demo, what is the solution provided in PCP for this case. And then, for example, in another side of the world, in China, there are also huge changes for expansion of visa exemption for several countries like Germany, France, Italy, the Netherlands, Spain, Malaysia, etc. So we really see here that it will be necessary to have a good solution like Employee Central Payroll. One more trend of landscape of payroll management is integration with other systems. This is really very, very important. You will all agree with me. With other HR systems or in any other systems that are preparing payroll or after payroll, it's very often seen scenario that we see in payroll projects. And it does make sense as long as it's enhancing data synchronization and streamlining workflows. However, when organizations rely on multiple different systems, for managing data, time, payroll, all this we can see often leads to a disconnected payroll framework. And this is particularly important for organizations that have grown through acquisitions, right, by gaining a lot of smaller companies into one big and operating various locations. We see that they encounter payroll challenges when they are expanding international or in the region, which now requires partnership with local payroll providers. So this is very, very often the solution. In some countries, this is a cheaper solution. In some countries, it's more expensive. It really depends of the final solution. However, the total cost of ownership in the end is, as a rule, always ending up as very, very high. So common issues, I'm sure many of you have seen this scenario before. Very often it includes frequent errors in the payroll, lack of insight in the processes, numerous manual adjustments after discovering the errors in the payroll, which then requires retrospective or backdated payments, extensive payroll reconciliation effort every month or at the end of the period. All this is leading to employee dissatisfaction. And the key concern is the transparency of payroll calculations as time assessments, with the lack of trust from employees to our employers is really affecting businesses on their daily activities, and it's really to be avoided. Overall, the current payroll management landscape is often characterized by a number of challenges and opportunities. That's how it is. Businesses that are able to adapt to these changes and implement the right technology will be well positioned for success in the future. That's what we are sure about. And over to you, Dan.
Thank you very much, Yasmina. That's very interesting. Really, what I wanted to cover today was the perspective from the C-level. And when I talk about C-level, it's perhaps a little bit of a cliche, but when we talk about C-level, we mean people taking decisions in and around payroll, whether it be at a VP level or director level or a management level, but people who are responsible for taking decisions. So I really want to cover 2 points here. One is what's happening in the market, and 2, what are companies doing about it? And then we'll do a little bit more of a deep dive into global payroll, which seems to be a topic at the moment. So firstly, why is there this demand? Why are companies thinking about this? And it seems to be to us that we're having so many conversations about what to do about payroll. And that can be in the context of a local payroll in a single country, or it could be in the context of a global payroll. It could be in the context of companies that have global payroll where they have a mixture of outsourced and insourced. But broadly, this type of conversation and this need and demand is a really hot topic. So it's coming up all the time, and we're talking to customers and talking to prospects about this type of thing. So hopefully you'll find this interesting, the thoughts that I have to share in and around this. I think it's driven from a couple of sides, really. One is that there's been a move to cloud with HR and with quite a lot of other systems, and payroll has, in some respects, has lagged behind. And often people don't want to take on that big challenge of changing their payroll system, especially if it works well. Then why would you change it? But there are reasons that you would change your payroll system, and then sometimes that's a forced decision. So if you have an end of life, for example, on your current system, you may actually be forced into that situation. So you have to replace it, and whether there's an upgrade path with the current provider or you actually start to select new systems. But that can be one thing in particular. The other thing I think that's driving it is how well you can control your current payroll systems. Are you compliant? So for example, within the organization, certainly in a multi-country situation, are you compliant? Are you able to report properly? Can you provide the right data either to the government or to the business? And those sorts of things are often, they happen and they have to happen, but they're not happening efficiently and credibly. And so people are looking for better ways to do this. Again, I'm talking about this from the point of view within this cloud framework, within the potential of what cloud can bring. So it's an interesting time. We're having lots of conversations. It is a hot topic, and we're talking all the time to our customers and prospects. And what options are people considering? Well, they're looking at a couple of things, and I think this is dependent largely on what the shape of your business, what are your goals, how is the strategy overall for IT? Could you be looking at things like integrations before you start to look at the technology? Could you look at other technologies such as time management, for example, that might really inform payroll? So we have customers who are in manufacturing, for example, where time is such a critical component. So the options that people are considering, not only in respect of payroll systems, but in respect of where they are on HR, in respect of where they are on time, or those things that are needed to operate overall, the ecosystem overall in and around this. So that's what, one big consideration. And I think there's also a need for consistency. So taking decisions in the context of what we already have. So the option, so that will drive your options and your decision making as well. Is what do we already have? Where can we go with this? Let's not start to create something new over here that is going to contradict what we've already done over here. So I think there's quite a lot to weigh up in this context, but what you do the prep work, and I'll talk about this in a little while, but you do the prep work and consider these factors and then make the decisions. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a deeper dive into global payroll, and we'll talk about what that is. And we've had some specific questions ahead of this session on global payroll. And actually, in fact, we published a paper last year on this, an ebook. So if you want to read more on that, you can do. So when we talk about global payroll, what do we mean? Well, simply a company will have multiple countries where they operate, and then they have a need to run payroll in each of those countries. And it's how do you approach that? How do you do it in such a way that you've got control, that you're compliant, that you can report, and that you can cover all of your parts of your business so that it works effectively, no matter what you set up. So if you've got shared services, or you've got a more federated, disparate approach, but how can you operate that effectively, and then how can you run it and get the data and optimize it? So that's the, when we talk about global payroll, that's what I mean by this. So any company that has multiple countries, that operates in multiple countries, and I know that's probably quite a few people on this call. So what do we see? And I was recently talking to SAP about this, just to validate the thinking, to say, are we still seeing the same thing in the market? What's happening with companies with this type of profile? So if you look at the chart here, what you'll see is larger headcount countries in this case. So we've got a number of countries with the axis across the bottom, and then the y-axis is the headcount. So you can see those larger headcount countries typically are deploying SAP SuccessFactors with SuccessFactors HR and running it in-house. And then for the countries that are smaller, what we call this longer tail of countries. So this will typically be 80%, the 80-20 rule, right? So 80% of your countries will be 20% of the population, 20% of the countries, 80% of the population. So that's where the effort is concentrated, on those larger countries, and that's where you're going to get the biggest returns. But you've still got to sort this problem out of what do we do overall in our estate. And I saw this through COVID. I saw this. I was talking to organizations where they were saying, we've got so many countries, and we really can't get to them. We can't see what's happening, because, as everyone will remember, in COVID, it was a difficult time. But importantly, there was a lot of companies operating by actually being in the office, by actually physically operating payroll systems and having to be there, and that drove quite an acceleration actually in the market of this change in the need to adopt different technology, but also the need to just think about how it was approached and how it was being managed. So this is a typical profile, and what you'll see. I wanted to just give you some thoughts that we were having, and that you should be thinking about when you're considering this, because many companies, as I said before, have already moved to cloud with HR. So what does it mean in respect to payroll? How do you prepare for it? And even if you really have not got a project, or you might be in the middle of a project, or you're partway through, you've got a mix of countries that have done something, but some need to still do something. These are all points that are worth considering. So the consultation with the stakeholders. So what does IT think? What does finance think? What are their needs? What does the business need? So this is not a decision to be taken in isolation. And certainly with cloud software, if you've been operating on-premise software for a long time, then moving to cloud, it's a different concept. So you're not building lots of functionality. You're using what's there, and you're configuring a much smaller percentage. So it's a much more about change of process. And then how much do you want to own the data? So if you're outsourcing, then that essentially all of that data is held with the outsourcer. So what's your appetite for controlling data? And we see different approaches in different industry sectors. And then what do you need? What drives the business? Is it compliance, reporting? Is it the need for strong analytics? So what do you need from these systems? So the systems are implemented, but what are you going to get back from them? what's the return on the investment, not only from a financial perspective, but also from a business perspective. Is it driving employee engagement, for example? Is it driving retention? Is it driving business benefits at a managerial level? Can they see what's happening with their people? Can they quickly approve things in the system? This is really a such a big factor to consider. Is what will this do for you? So we all know we need the technology, but ultimately, what's it going to do for the business, and how will it drive the business? And then I think the final point is here that I just want to raise on is organizational change and the impact on that. And that's partly about the project, and that's partly about the internal team. But what change will this bring? Are you ready for it? And can you move forwards? Okay, so why would you invest? Well, as I said right at the start, there's probably a need to invest. There's a lot of questions on this, but really investing in the future is about, for me, I think is doing the right thing for the business, is progressing the business, advancing the business forward, running new technologies. So we know that those companies that are doing well, they run the best technology, and then that obviously has a knock-on effect into the business, into your customers, into your employees. So the very strong business case in that sense. Okay, thank you. I hope that was useful, and I will now hand back to Yasmina.
Thank you very much, Dan. So important, all these things to talk about. Yes, so now I will tell you a little bit more about Employee Central Payroll together with Payroll Control Center, and how do we understand this front end and back end of the payroll engine? Well, Employee Central Payroll is a comprehensive solution designed to handle payroll functions within the SAP SuccessFactors. They're mostly for payroll processing, payroll, and payroll management, as well as HR. And here are some core features that I will present you today. Here we see integration with SAP SuccessFactors, really high-level architecture here, where there is integration that ensures seamless data flow from Employee Central over to Employee Central Payroll. What kind of data are we talking here about? Well, that's definitely data that is important for processing payroll, that will be transferred once prepared and selected from HR or whoever is now working with this part, right, will be replicated over to Employee Central Payroll and ready to run the payroll in the back end. But however, we are now going back again into Employee Central, where we have a Payroll Control Center. I will show you very, very shortly in a demo how it all looks like. So the information in the data is flowing all the time from one to another and then back again into a Payroll Control Center. For employee, this means in employee self-service, access to pay slips, to tax refunds documents, or seeing their benefits. Yeah, many other things that are available for an employee. So another core feature for Employee Central Payroll is that this system is designed to handle complex payroll calculations and other compliance requirements across different countries and regions. Employee Central Payroll is constantly updated by SAP, who is a payroll software provider, and there's really an army of people from SAP side that is working very diligently on these updates. Nothing is missed from the legislative side. There are regular updates, your SP packages twice per year, or SAP notes release. However, we could see during, for example, pandemics, when there was a need for some ad hoc reaction or really updating the system so the business could have continuity in their payroll processing, which was done really excellently. Another cool feature of Employee Central Payroll is real-time processing. As mentioned previously, there is a data flow from Employee Central over to Employee Central Payroll via a replication process or a mashup. And here I would like to mention what type of data is actually processed from Employee Central over to, what type of data is processed in Employee Central Payroll to create payroll. Well, personal data, first of all, which is data effective employee data records, and that's what we need when we are showing changes in work life cycle of employee, like new employment, termination, or an employee is going over to an for example, global assignment start and end, and information like that. So very personal data. Then we have a compensation data, also part of can come from Employee Central, gross to net calculation. So everything that is considered for calculation of the payroll, and it is coming from the employment contract, like it's a legal reason for employment. Everything that is organizational expense liabilities and tax calculations will then come via compensation data. Furthermore, we see regulatory data, and this is in forms of taxes, contributions, garnishments. So this type of data is very locally relies to local rules and regulations. And one more thing is here that very often we see this data directly in payroll system. So not necessarily that it will be part of HR system or the pre-payroll system. Another type of data which is also very important, it would be impossible to run payroll, right? It's time data, where time evaluation is done in the payroll system, which is part of gross payroll data, all payments that are done based on the time worked under bargaining collective agreements or any other regulations. However, it creates calculation from the attendance or from the absences via absence codes and over to wage type codes. I will show a little bit later again in the demo, and I'm sure you all know how it looks like. And the final one is the finance data, which is monitoring year-to-date balances, all legal standards, integration of payroll outcomes into the general ledger. So that the data that we have calculated during the payroll and created liabilities for employee is now going over into the posting accounting documents, everything like company codes, cost centers, profit centers, vendor codes, general ledger accounts, like all these necessary things will be then transferred from the payroll system over to the financial system via finance data. The next is employee self-service. As mentioned a little bit before, we have a possibility here to see pay slips, tax forms, delivers, then benefits. Employees have a possibility to organize, to request time off, or to see attendances and any quota balances remaining. So really a lot of service that is provided and is improving employee satisfaction in the end. And another core feature that you will agree with me, whoever is using the SAP already payroll system, a very, very strong side of Employee Central Payroll. It's when it comes to reporting and analytics, comparing to other software on the market, really a lot to see and to offer. There are no limitations. If something does not exist, it's possible to prepare. However, a lot of statutory reports and already pre-configured in the system. It's all used to gain insights into payroll data, helping organizations in strategic decision making, and of course, at the end, optimization of payroll processes. Yes, so before we go over to demo, I would just like to take a little conclusion here to wrap up about Employee Central Payroll. It's a very powerful option for all organizations who have a goal to integrate payroll operations with wider HR systems, especially for those within SAP ecosystem. For a successful integration and implementation, it is of course necessary To understand the organizational requirements, it's necessary to have a proper project planning, and later on to provide a proper system training and develop the change management strategies. So first of all, I mentioned when we have Employee Central Payroll that there is a back end, there is an engine that is calculating the payroll, all these calculations data that has been shared and has arrived. Now I'm talking only about running the payroll. And there is a front end that is called Payroll Control Center that you can easily access from your Employee Central in SuccessFactors. So I will go here from home over to payroll directly. Here we see Payroll Control Center, and we see a group of applications that are delivered to Employee Central Payroll and also used to manage and run payroll processes. Everything that we see here is based on my user, on my role, and it's a role-based permission system. So let's say that I have a role of a global payroll manager, and now when I log in, I can see directly active processes for payroll for several countries. So in this case, it's going to be, let's say, United States, UK, Denmark, Sweden, and so on. So I can see really every moment where the payroll is, what the teams are doing, what's the progress, how many steps in the phase already conducted, what is the status, are there any errors, and when is the due date to close this payroll, or to, if it's a live payroll run, to produce a bank file, or if it's a reporting. So this is all pre-configured. But before I start talking about this, I would like to actually start explaining first thing, manage policies. One of the 9 applications that are available in the Payroll Control Center. Here we will start from managing those validations that are important for us to validate before running the payroll. So Payroll Control Center has enabled, due to D-cluster functionality, has enabled possibility to discover errors in a very early stage of running the payroll, which is then done by setting up the validations built into a policy that you can add to every payroll process that is created and that is going to be applied. In this case, I'm looking, for example, for Great Britain, what I would like to, for example, validate before running the payroll. What is important that the system should identify as an error, or not necessarily as error, but also as a warning, and say, okay, here is an employee that has a deviation to the validation you have set or preset, and I would like you to go and to consequently see if this is okay, and you can process this employee in the payroll, release it in the payroll, or do you need to make some corrections before processing, or maybe even delete and remove employee completely from the payroll. The policies that will be applied in the different processes, we go over to manage processes, and here now it's again easy to think. It's easy to create and edit different processes. For example, you can see here that I have pre-payroll separately, I have live payroll, I have post-payroll, where I'm going to do to expect different actions from the system as I'm running the payroll. But if we say we start from pre-payroll here, I have defined the payroll area that I want to run and to apply this process to. In this case, it's bi-weekly, so it depends on the frequency. Am I running monthly payroll, bi-weekly, or weekly? So the process will be applied to that payroll area that is configured actually in the back end that I will show you very shortly. Furthermore, you can see here that policies that have been created here under managed policies. So all those validations that have been added are now included into this policy, and the policy is in return included into the specific process. Beside policies and validations, there are also some statistical indicators like KPIs. And here we can see also that added here to show us, for example, how many new employees have started in this payroll run, how many terminations, how many with retrospective calculation. I will show you all that very shortly. But here in this phase, you can add selected KPIs. And furthermore, important is when it comes to recurrences, here you can schedule already now for, let's say, rest of the year. When do I want to have, in which dates I want to run biweekly payroll? What are the due dates for producing the bank file, etc., etc. And in the same way as I have created pre-payroll run, I'm also going to prepare a live payroll run, and then post-payroll run, closing the payroll, including financial reporting, statutory reportings like tax reports, etc., etc. So you can see here, as a global payroll manager, I have access to all these different processes for different countries. Just by switching to my processes, here the system is giving me overview over active processes, so all processes that are ongoing right now or are not finalized. I can also see upcoming processes, so these are future processes that will be waiting here and then initiating only by clicking start button here. Or if I have any changes in, for example, I want to change a policy now, I have added a new validation, I'm going to delete it here and then process again. Furthermore, I will do the same if I have an off-cycle run. For example, I will find the same information here. And therefore, completed processes historically, all data is here. I can see as a payroll manager. This is also from auditing perspective a very important functionality. When was it closed? At what time? Who has worked on it, etc., etc. So here under active processes, for example, if I open just one of them, let's see, I can see immediately, are there any errors? When is the due date? The system will give me more information for the status, etc. So if I am satisfied with this, I can continue producing the payroll and then initiating all policies, applying process of monitoring where the system is then comparing my validations that are important for our organization, identifying potential errors or warnings under the monitoring phase. And once we are all settled with this, we have produced the payroll, we are fine to go over to next process, which will be in this case live payroll processing. Before I show you all this that I'm talking about more like in a process payroll, I want to tell you also that there is a functionality of managed teams. It's a very good thing because here you can create the teams that you want to apply to every process. Like you can have a team that will be working with the pre-payroll, and then you can have more people working on the productive payroll, or you can add some more people if it's like more workload is higher. For example, you're paying bonuses this month and things like that. So it's just like adding users and removing if there should not be anyone else. So, for example, I can see here which team members are. These are usernames of my payroll teams who will be working this month under this payroll run and under this process. Just to show you the most important things here is on your front end, right, in the Employee Central, there where you have your payroll control center. As a payroll manager, you have a possibility to create here to put these fairy tales as you want them to be, to put the information that gives a value to you as for your function. What is important for you to see from the statistical point of view and also from the assignment, who is working with what. We can see here, for example, that for this month in this payroll run, the system has identified 26, it says here errors, but I would say 26 assignments, and then not necessarily all of them are errors and wrong. I can see furthermore that these 26 items have been split on Linda, Victor, Sarah, and Joseph. Linda has 16 items to look on. It's really a lot of work. I, as a payroll manager, have a possibility to see if Linda is overloaded or maybe she gets sick or something. I can lift up all this as I can access them, and then assign them to another teammate in the payroll team. Because if I see that the due date is or deadline is coming closer, so just to help the team. So here are some statistics that we can see how many new hires, how many organizational changes have happened. So just by simply on all these numbers, I can see really, I got a list of, for example, new hires. I will see if there is any global assignment incoming, which could be interesting for me, as I maybe know that there is a situation like that, etc., etc. So it's really up to you what you would like to see, what you need to see. So now I'm logged in as Linda, and this is my payroll control center. I can see that I have been assigned for this payroll run. I have 16 different items to look to, and they are split into 4 categories. And I see here directly I have some retro calculations. That's what I'm mostly interested into to have a look. And I see this is split on 3 employees. They have some backdated changes for 2 months ago, so February and March in this particular situation. I can see directly it's regarding the base pay and what are the amounts per month. So really have a lot of information here. I see that it is info type for basic pay. The old amount was 18,000. The new amount is 20. So I know now that this is change in a monthly salary for this employee that, let's say, HR forgot to inform me. So this is not necessarily the error. It's a legitimate process, and I have to allow this to happen in the payroll. However, before that, I'm just going to put a note here for the rest of the team, what happened here, so that everyone knows here also historically to have a explanation, why have I set this to be resolved. I can see here now I have moved this into set to resolve section, and I have 2 more to work with. However, I'm just going to finish this one. Under set to resolve is now this employee with full data that is necessary. Back to the front monitor, I can see that from 26 it has fallen down to 25. And I can also see who was the one who worked. So as a payroll manager, I can see who was the one who has moved this or who has done some actions to work on the payroll. Yes, and once the team has been working diligently to resolve all 25 remaining 26 errors or advisors. So we have now no errors. The payroll is ready to be finalized. You can see here that in this process of running a live payroll, I have 6 steps that I need to go through: payroll production, run payroll data validation. And now when I have to verify payroll data quality once again, I'm still in the process. However, I see there are no errors, which is allowing me now to end the payroll production and to end the payroll run. The system will say that the process is completed, which means that all this is now set. There will be date and time. Also important from auditing purposes when the payroll was closed. And this means also that the payroll is now open to receive new data, new changes for next payroll run in the payroll area. And from post-payroll reports, standard reports will be to create a posting document. If there is a connection with the finance system, there will be releasement and transfer of the posting accounting document, and then create a payment file. Is it a bank file or is it any other payment file that should be included? Yes, so this would be about processing payroll control center from the cockpit side, right from the front page, and really just streamlining entire payroll process and the team. what really happened in the back end, I will show you very shortly. Just before really leaving Employee Central, I want to get your focus on one employee that is working in UK, for example. And I want to show you how it looks like when we can see that this employee has several assignments within the same business unit. He has a primary assignment and he has some secondary assignments. And he also has one future assignment coming as a global assignment. He will be moved from UK over to Denmark on a long term, and the process of replicating this employee over to Employee Central Payroll. We can see here that there are all these numbers included into employees' personal area. Here we can see that employee will be away on a global assignment as of 1st of March 2024, and you can see I can enter all the way up to 3 years now by the end of February 27, where employee will be excluded from this payroll area for the payroll run. So there's no risk that there will be a double payment of salary. However, I can already now prepare from 1st of March that this employee is coming back home and coming back to employee or to payroll area to receive salary in UK. On the other side, in Denmark, what's happening? The same. Here is an incoming global assignment, and this employee will be included into Danish payroll going forward up to 3 years. And from the 1st of March 27 will be the event of termination, and the employee will be excluded from Danish payroll, will no longer be there. So that's just to show you a little bit of functionalities when we have this complicated assignments, and maybe some benefits should be kept still in the home country, especially when it comes to shares and options and taxation of the same. This is how it looks like on the back end. Yes, processing transactions to run the payroll. I will simply save this variant, and it will be run from the payroll control center, what you have just seen. It's just to show what's going on in the back end. The system is creating all these tables to process the payroll, right, to process everything that should be included. And here we can now see that there is a payslip created with all transactions in Danish crowns now, right, with the monthly salary, and yeah, there were some also hours to be paid before. There is a company car and pension and everything that is necessary. Also, one important functionality to show here is payroll control record, which is now comparing to payroll control center that we just see front end, allowing correction of data and new maintenance of data for the next payroll, or releasing for payroll, which means that we are closing the area and no corrections can be done. So all this is synchronized with payroll control center and the payroll that we can approach from Employee Central.
The first question is, are there any providers, third-party vendors, who use SuccessFactors Payroll as their payroll engine for outsourced payroll services? I think maybe you, Dan, could take this one.
Yeah, there are some that use it, but broadly not as a wholesale approach. So I think Alight offer this type of service, Alaris, a couple of others maybe. But traditionally, what the outsourcers have done is offered, or they use a variant of SAP on premise, and then they scale up with that. So I know that, for example, KMD in Denmark use SAP as their underlying platform, and broadly, the reason for this is that when SAP sell EC Payroll, they're selling it to customers as opposed to outsourcers. So. But it does exist, but it's less common than an ADP, for example, use SAP on premise across their global view system.
All right. Next question is, what are the key challenges for current payroll management?
Okay, I can take that one. Well, there are many challenges, of course. It's not that simple and easy, but I would say that the greatest challenge is definitely legal compliance and how to stay compliant, how this, balancing act in satisfying statutory requirements and be up to date on the edge all the time with information and uploading that or upgrading the system at the same time keeping employees satisfied. It's really a huge challenge for everyone. We know that. And by having employee central payroll, this is really something you don't have to worry about and you don't have to think about. So a huge burden is really away from your shoulders. So that's one thing I see as a challenge. And then another one could be data security and privacy, how to keep all this data safe, right? And this is also where Employee Central Payroll has a very, very strong side with everything is based on a permission. So a user is assigned a certain permission. It's not possible to see some data if your user does not allow that. Encryption of access controls, all that is safeguarding payroll data and comply with the privacy regulations. So that's definitely one of the challenges.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Another question is if SuccessFactors can handle global mobilities in Nordic countries?
Oh, yes, for sure. So we know very well, we talk about Nordic countries, Öresund region, Sweden and Denmark, a lot of people living in South Sweden, commuting daily over to Denmark, and often work from home is allowed, but it could be also a challenge, right, when it comes to taxation and there's rules that are similar to Belgium and Netherlands that I mentioned previously. So it's also easy to handle all this follow-up and to calculate tax properly. In some situations, there are some contributions because there is a difference in employer contributions in Denmark and in Sweden. So this all needs to be measured and followed up properly so that everything is compliant. So definitely, Employee Central Payroll is something I would recommend for this region. That's for sure.
All right. Then another question: when do you think it is really working for German companies, including tariff legislations?
When it will be working? Yes. Well, look, it's a statutory change, and I am 100% sure that there are already notes and packages that are replying to that requirement, right? That needs to be upgraded. So if not already done, then very soon we can try to check and to come back to you if you would like. So it won't be missed, I'm sure.
Great. Are there any limitation in easy payroll in comparison with SAP HCM on premise?
Well,
yeah.
yeah, I had a pleasure to work with both. I can tell you, definitely cloud solution is a much more secure. That's in functionality, there are no limitations. It's the same, but you really feel that you are in the cloud. You feel that speed behind. You feel that reliance, like everything is in the system, and you can really rely on that. And that's.
I think, Yasmin, the other thing that I have been talking about recently is SAP are not putting development into SAP on-premise. So if you've got SAP on-premise system, you can optimize it, and you can have self-service, and you can do lots of things with it. But all of the investment from SAP is going into cloud applications. So I think that's just something to bear in mind as well.
Yeah,
Great.
That's for sure. Support will be extended, but
yes.
not too long.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Great. Thanks for all your great questions. Dan, would you like to sum up?
Yeah, just thanks for attending, everyone. It's interesting. It's interesting for us to go through this exercise and prepare this this type of talk and presentation. If you want to connect with us, you can see the email addresses here. So please do connect with us. And I'm sure we'll be back in some sort of format to do an update later in the year as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you for joining. We hope you found this video insightful and inspiring. If you're ready to take your workforce to the next level, visit our website for more valuable resources and solutions.